So hello and welcome everyone to this new tutorial session. In this video, we will understand about exception handling in Python. So we start off this video by understanding the need of exception handling. Then we will discuss how we can implement exception handling using the try except statement. Then we will also discuss various examples, like we will discuss how we can catch a specific exception. Then we will discuss how we can use the else block with the try except statement. Then we will also discuss the use of finally block. And in the last, we will discuss how we can raise an exception in Python. So without any further delay, let's jump on to our very first topic and let's discuss why we need exception handling in Python. Basically, exception in Python, as previously stated, is a unexpected condition that results in the termination of a program. For example, we create a Python program that calculates the division between two input integer values, but while specifying the input, the user wants to divide any number by 0. So in that case, the program will end and it will throw an zero division error exception. So let's discuss this thing with the help of an example. Here you can see one example. So where I am taking two inputs. So very first is the dividend and we are storing its value in the num_1 variable, and then we are taking divisor as an input and we are storing it in the num_2 variable. Now I am converting all these inputs into integer using the int function, and then I am calculating the division. So here I am using this operator, division operator. I am storing the value of the division in the result variable, and then I'm printing the result using the print function. So let me execute this cell. So let me first put 12. Let's hit enter. Now for divisor, if I put 0 and hit enter, here you can see we didn't get any result. Instead, the Python interpreter has returned this exception, zero division error. So mathematically we cannot divide any number by 0. So that's why this exception has been raised. Now if we do not address this exception, this error message will appear and the program execution will be terminated. So as a result, exception handling is critical in dealing with the unexpected exceptions. So if we want our program to work properly, we need to handle these exceptions. Now how we can handle these exceptions in Python? So for this task, we utilize the try except statement. So exceptions in Python can be managed with the help of this try except statement. The try clause holds the critical code that can cause an exception. Now every try clause must be followed by an except block, and the except block will consist the code that handles or manages the exception. So here you can see the workflow of a try except statement. So first we put some critical code in the try block. So first the code given in the try block will be executed. Now if that code causes any exception, then what will happen? The code given in the except block will be executed and then it goes to the next phase. But if the code given in the try block does not cause any exception, then the code of try block will be executed and then it will skip the except block and it will move to the next phase. So here is the general syntax of using this try except statement. So first we specify the try keyword, then we use the colon, and then with the indentation we specify the code between the try block. In the same way, just after the try block, we define this except statement, and with the indentation we define the code which will handle the exception. So we can understand this concept of try except statement better with the help of an example. So let's move to that. So here I am executing very simple example. So what I am doing, I am taking two integer values as an input from the user and we are calculating the sum. So what I am done here, so I have put all the code of calculating the sum within this try block, and just after the try block I have specified the except block. What will happen if the code given in the try block will raise any exception, then the except block will be executed, and in the except block you can see two print statements. So this two print statements will be implemented. So let's execute this code of block. So let's first enter any number. After this, so instead of putting a number, let me put a string value. So let me put Python and hit enter, and here you can see instead of returning any exception, it has returned the print statement given in the except block. In the except block we have these two print statements stating there is some issue, please give a valid input. So that's why we got this result. So here in this example we can see that even if any type of exception is raised, the exception block gets executed, but we can do much more than this in Python. So for instance, with one try block we can specify multiple except block, and moreover we can also use each of the except block to catch any specific exception. So let's discuss how we can catch a specific exception in Python and how we can specify multiple except block with one try block. So there are basically two ways in which we can do this. So if we want to specify multiple except block, we can use the first method. So here in the first method, you can see first we have specified the try block. Now if we want to catch any specific exception, we need to specify the name of the exception just after the except keyword. So here you can see I have defined two except block. First one is for index error and second one is for value error. Now this code given in the index error exception will be executed when this index error will be raised, and the code given in the value error exception will be executed when the value error has been raised. Now what if we want to specify only one except block, and within that except block we want to specify multiple exceptions? So we can also do that. So the method 2 it can be utilized for that. So in the method 2 you can see first we have defined this try block, and after the try block we have defined this except block, and within the except block just after the except keyword we have defined two exceptions in bracket. So if any of these exception has been raised, so the code given in this except block will be executed. Now in the same way we can specify more than two exceptions at the same time. Now let us understand both of these methods with the help of example. So let's first discuss the very first method, where we will discuss how we can specify multiple except block with one try block. So what we are doing in this example, first we have imported the math module, then we have defined a list of values. Now in this list of values we have defined three different type of values. First is a string type value, Python guides. Then we have defined this negative integer value, -1, and then we have defined 4, which is a positive integer value. Now after this what we are doing, we are using a for loop to iterate through each item given in the list. So here you can see we have defined this for loop, and here value represents the each item in the list. And now after this we are using the try except block. So what we are doing, basically we are calculating the factorial of a value given in the list. So that's why I have put this part of calculating the factorial and printing the result in the try block. And after the try block I have specified two except block. So first exception is based on type error, and the second exception is based on the value error. So basically there are two types of error which can raise in this condition. So when we pass Python guides as an input to the factorial function, so it will raise this type error because we are passing string type value where the factorial function only accepts positive integers. And then if we pass -1 to this factorial function, it will cause an value error, because as I told you, the factorial function in the math module accepts only positive integer values. If you pass negative integer, it will cause a value error. So when this type error exception has been raised, it will print this message that the given input is incorrect. And if this value error exception has been raised, it will tell the user that the given input is negative. So let me execute this code of block, and here you can see it has returned the result for each of the value. So here Python guides is a incorrect input. Now -1 is a negative value passed to this factorial function, and 4 is a correct value, so that's why it has returned the factorial of given number is 24. So 24 here represents the factorial of 4. Now let's discuss the same example where we will use only one except block and we try to define multiple exceptions within the same except block. How we can do that? So we only need to modify the except block. So just after the except keyword, we have defined two exceptions within the parenthesis, and these exceptions are separated by a comma. So when any of these exception has been raised, it will return this message stating that the given input is incorrect. So let me execute this code of block, and here you can see it has returned this result. So Python guides is an incorrect input. In the same way, -1 is also an incorrect input, and the factorial of given number, which is 4, is 24. Now I hope you all understand how we can raise one specific exception in Python. Now let's move forward and let's discuss about the next topic. And next we will discuss how we can use the else clause with the try except statement. Now there will be many instances where we need to execute certain code when the code within the try block does not throw any error. So in such cases we can utilize the optional else block with the try except statement. So what will happen when we use the else block with the try except statement? So here you can see the workflow of this execution. Now first the code given in the try block will be executed. Now if the code given in the try block does not return any exception, then the code given in the else block will also be executed. But if the code given in the try block returns any type of exception, then the code given in the except block will be executed and the code given in the else block will be skipped. Now how we can utilize this? This is the basic syntax of using the else block. Now else block is optional to use, so we will use the else block at the very last after the except block. First we need to define the try except statement, and after the except block we can define the else block. Now let's understand this thing with the help of an example. So here you can see one basic example. In this example, first we have defined one dictionary with name user underscore data. Within this dictionary we have defined 5 key value pairs. So first is the user ID, then is the first name, then is the last name. After this there is age and height. Now what we are doing, after defining the dictionary, we are using the for loop to iterate through each key, and we are printing the key using the print function. Now after this we are asking the user to enter any field as an input, and we are fetching the value of that particular key. Now if the user specifies the correct key name, then the else block will be executed. So what we are doing in this else block, we are printing the key and we are printing its value. But what if the code given in the try block will not be executed? So the code given in the except block will be executed, so which states incorrect input. So let me execute this code block, and here you can see it has printed out all the keys. So what I have to do, I have to enter any of the fields that I want from this list of keys. So let me enter age, and here you can see it has returned this result. So age is 53 in the given dictionary. Now what if I don't specify proper key name? Let me put XYZ and then I hit enter. So when I put XYZ as input, it has returned this result, incorrect input. Now other than using the else block, we can also utilize the finally block. So this finally block is also optional to use with the try except statement. Now the code given in the finally block will get executed regardless of the exception. Now the main use of this finally statement is to release all the external resources, and this finally block is utilized in conjunction with the try block. Now here one thing we need to understand is that while specifying the try block, we can either use the except block with it or we can use the finally block with it. However, we can also use the finally block even after the except block. So here is the complete workflow of using this finally statement. So first the code given in the try block will be executed. If the given code in the try block returns any exception, it will redirect to the code given in the except block, and then after the except block the code given in the finally block will be executed, and if there is no exception, even then also the finally block will be executed. So let us discuss this thing with the help of an example. So here you can see one simple example. In this example also we are calculating division between two numbers, two input numbers. So first we are taking dividend as an input, then we are taking divisor as an input, then we are calculating the division and we are storing the value in the result variable, and all this code has been put in the try block. And after the try block we have specified the except block. So if there is any exception, this string value will be printed. Please enter valid values. So if there is any exception, so this print statement will be executed and please enter valid values. Then we have specified the else block. Within the else block we are printing the result. So if there is no exception, the else block will be executed and the result will be printed out. And in the last we have defined this finally block. In the finally block we have put a simple string statement stating program ends. So let me execute this code block. First I have to put the dividend. Let me put 18. Then I have to put the divisor. So let me put 4 and hit enter. So here you can see it has returned the result, which is 4.5, and after the result it has returned program ends. Now what if there is an exception in our program? So let me put 12 and let me put string value. For example, I put XYZ and hit enter. So it has returned this thing. Please enter valid values, and it has also returned program ends. Now let's move forward and let's discuss the very last topic, which is about raising an exception in Python. Now in context of handling exceptions, Python additionally facilitates the use of raise keyword. Now this raise keyword enables us to explicitly raise any exception whenever we want. Moreover, we can use this raise keyword to either raise any built-in exception, or we can also use it to raise any custom exception. Now in our previous session we have discussed how we can use the raise keyword to raise any custom exception. So here in this tutorial we will focus on using the raise keyword on built-in exceptions and understand how to handle these exceptions with the help of an example. So here you can see one example. Now how we can raise an exception? We use the raise keyword followed by the name of the exception. So let's focus on this example. First, we have imported the math module. After importing the math module, we are asking the user to enter any integer value greater than 0. Then we are checking whether the given input is greater than 0 or not. If the value is greater than 0, then it will calculate its square root using the sqrt function from the math module. Now if the given value is less than 0, then we are raising this value error using the raise keyword. Now after this we are using the except block, and within the except block we are handling this value error exception which we are raising in the try block. So when this value error has been raised, it will print out this string, please enter a valid value greater than 0. And after the except block we have defined the else block. So the else block will return the square root of the given number. It will simply print the result. So let me execute this code block. So to execute the code block I will use shift plus enter. Now here I have to put any valid integer value. So first let's put any valid integer value. Let's put 8 and hit enter. So the square root of given number is 2.8284. Now what if I put any number less than 0? Let me put -4 this time and hit enter. So this time it has returned this string, please enter a valid value greater than 0. So with this we have come to the end of this tutorial session. In this video we have understood how we can handle exceptions in Python. So thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one.